Let's dive in. Bengals questions. What do we got this week, Mark?
Of course, our fans are going to start with a question about left guard. Obviously, a big pressing need on this team this offseason. That's the one question everybody circles back.
It's like, this is what we need to know.
So Eric and Terry have similar questions, right? The Bengals have settled their tackle positions with Orlando Brown. They brought in Trent Brown. They drafted Amarius Mims. So now they're just zeroed in on the only weak spot potentially on this offensive line. So their questions both center around, do you think that they're going to try Mims out at left guard? With Volson being a little bit shaky, he sort of had a surprise finish to the end of last season where it looked like maybe he was turning it around. They didn't add any interior offensive linemen until Matt Lee in the draft. So what are the chances that you think they're going to kick Mims inside at left guard and let him compete for a starting spot there?
0. They're not moving him inside. He's a tackle. I mean, he's there to play tackle. He's probably going to be, there's a chance he's your starter on opening day out there. And Trent Brown plays tackle. I mean, they need to fix that position and have depth there and all of that. And so, if you get to late in the season, it's different. You get late in the season and you're just trying to find your best 5. And, Kappa's hurt and Volson's hurt, and you're just looking around the building. You say, what about the giant dude? Can we put him in there? I think that's a different scenario. But right now, training camp, you're already worried about a guy with lack of experience. Learn one thing, play one position, let him learn that before you go trying to cross-train him in a bunch of different spots. And so for right now, him and the Bouncers are going to be playing tackle. And that's where they're going to be. And the other thing about Cordell Volson, the coaches talk very differently about Cordell Volson than they do outside the building. I mean, outside the building, I know what it is about him. I know people love to talk about, what he's got. We're going to have a bad PFF grade, and we're going to have these people pointing out that's the weak spot and this analysis. They don't view him that way. They view a arrow very much pointing up on him. They felt like he really did evolve as the year went on last year, and you saw the step they wanted to see in a big way from him at the end, and believe that he is growing into who they hoped he would be for this year. And you have to take chances like that. You got to hit like that on the offensive line. We've talked about it a million times. You can't pay everybody. And so I just think they really feel like he is going to continue to take that role. They view him through a different light than a lot of you do. And as far as backups go, I mean, they like Cody Ford. We didn't really get to see much from last year because everybody stayed healthy, but they like Cody Ford. They had him as the first guy off the bench last year. And so he's there. Jackson Carman's still on the team. He's a guy they did use a high pick on for that's worth. I do think they need to be looking for a veteran guard or center type. Trey Hill and Matt Lee, I guess, are going to be there to compete against each other for backup center in the simplest name competition, and that's fine. But they need you're the Max Sharping guy, right? Who's some veteran that's played, that has like 38 starts, but isn't good enough to actually start, who can be a solid backup, who knows what the hell he's doing in this league. Like, they still need to add that, in my opinion, to that room. I'd rather have that. I'd rather have that than Jackson Carman at this point, who I think we kind of know who he is, unless we see something different from Jackson in the offseason and in through camp.
Yeah, I can't imagine that we would. But we also get so many of those complaints from people when the Bengals draft somebody that played one position and make them play a different one. People were mad that they took Carman from a tackle spot and tried him as a guard, or Dax Hill and putting him as the safety or whatever. But so it's weird to me that people are like, yeah, let's take Mims, who played right tackle, and let's make him the left guard, when it is pretty rare for the offensive line to stay as healthy as they did last season. You can't necessarily count on them just running back that health. And part of the value of having a Trent Brown, he's played on both sides. So if Orlando goes down, you could kick him over, and then Mims is starting. I think, maybe I'm alone in this, but I think there's still a chance that Mims could win that right tackle job just on his own. No question. I feel like you don't need to kick him to left guard for him to maybe have a chance on this team.
No. I mean, you love your offensive line situation if Trent Brown is your swing tackle, and I think that's something that they would certainly be considering.
I mean, I get the question. It's a nice question to have where, your only weak spot is Volson, who, like you said, is a player that they feel pretty optimistic about. No question, it's the best offensive line Joe Burrow has had during his time here. But I love that it is the first question that we get. It's like, hey, we got to focus on this left guard situation.
Let's start there. Left
Our
guard.
next question, we've got a run passer boot, and this is about the different look of the offense with pitcher and the new skill guys, the added emphasis of starting fast because we always get in this hole every season, and just because Burrow does have a great offensive line. So which of these is most likely to occur in the first 2 games of the season? Jermaine Burton proves to be an early cover 2 buster and gets a deep ball with a 50-plus yard touchdown reception. The Zach Moss Chase Brown tandem goes over 175 all-purpose yards in a game, or no sacks are surrendered by the offensive line.
This is a good question. I think, I'm going to look at, you've got all new pieces in your first 2 parts there. Burton, you're trying to figure that out. Moss and Brown, while Moss is a veteran and you got a half of however many snaps of Chase Brown last year, there's still questions about how that's going to pan out. Outside of, I guess, the Mims Trent Brown, you've got continuity on the offensive line. You've got Burrow, who, he's going to get rid of the ball quickly. You could see a game where there's no sacks. So for me, I would lean into no sacks given just out of continuity and known quantity there. I think that has the highest chance of taking off quickly. So what's something that we've seen in recent years is that this team has tinkered and fixed some things that didn't quite start the way they thought they were going to in that, like, between games 3 and 7. And then that's helped them take off in recent years. That to me is going to be could be part of the Zach Moss Chase Brown thing, could be part of the Jermaine Burton integration, finding out the best way to work him in to their entire skill player rotation. So I would lean more into the offensive line having the superlative than the others. After that, though, I would say Moss and Brown, just because I think that between the screen game, their ability to break long runs, the combination of however they're going to utilize them, they're going to come up with something. And I think that they're going to be an explosive group for them, whether it's out of the backfield or whatever. And so I will say them, and then I'll boot Burton. I just think with any rookie, even receivers, you can come on quick, but it does take some time for you to really pick it up. And I think they will be easing him in some, considering they have some other pieces around him.
See, I feel like I'm going to go almost the opposite way here. And the key to me is these first 2 games of the season. Those are solid defenses you're playing out of the gate. New England's not a bad defense. Kansas City has got some guys that can get some sacks on you. So the sacks thing is probably what I would boot. And I'm going to run the Burton thing because I feel like, that's one play. That's all you need to check that box. It's not a sustained game like the Chase Brown stuff and Zach Moss combo. All you need is just him to get loose for one big one because they're paying a lot of attention to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and he beats a guy, and then boom, you get that. I could easily see that happening in the first couple games maybe, and then definitely going to pass the Moss Brown tandem going 175 and then booting the sacks just because of the defenses you face.
No, you're right. You could be like, look, Jermaine Burton is really good at running 3 plays right now. Let's make sure we run one of them.
Give him one
of
the 3.
Get a touchdown. Yeah. Absolutely. You could see that being part of how they try to get him started, but it's got to actually happen too. And Burrow has to be able to connect with them. So it's a tough one to answer. I think they're all very even. It's a great run passer boot is what it is. Well distributed.
Great questions. Yeah, much more interesting than the left guard open. We're going to stay in wide receivers though with our next question. This is a 2-parter. So the first, what are the ramifications going to be if Jermaine Burton has a stupid outburst in a game? And the second question is T. Higgins related. The second part of this is his tagged salary coupled with the number of games he's played comparable to the other vet wide receivers who got new deals.
So are we already projecting a Burton outburst onto this guy?
Yeah, which is, I don't like that question.
Yeah. I don't, there probably will be one. So what? They're literally called rookie mistakes when you do something silly that you learn from. That's what it is. I expect that from Burton. I expect to be rookie mistakes from everybody. Maybe it will be an outburst. Maybe it will be running the wrong route. Maybe it will be not understanding something about the NFL game. I don't know. That stuff happens when you play rookies. That's why coaches don't like playing rookies. But So I don't know that I'm going to say that this dude's definitely going to be unhinged and have some kind of an outburst. That's going to be part of his learning experience. What's going to happen? They're going to try to learn from it the same way that they tried to learn from it when Cam Taylor-Britt came on the field and made a dumb play, and Lou Anarumo told him, look, don't ever do that again, right? Like that's the type of stuff that happens when you play young players. Same with Dax Hill, and he had something he did. I mean, this is part of playing as a rookie in the NFL. There's a big adjustment period to understanding how you have to play the way, whether it's your temperament or whether it's your understanding of the offense or whatever that is. You learn from it. So I'm not really concerned about that much. If it becomes a consistent thing and he doesn't learn from it, then you have a different problem, but that's not what this question is. The Higgins thing, I wrote 4 parts on this. I know. I don't expect y'all to have read it all. There's a lot there. I actually did this in part 2, a look at not only the participation numbers for Higgins compared to the other members of the much ballyhooed 2020 receiver class, which, he is, if he wanted the Michael Pittman deal, he had 900 less snaps than Michael Pittman over the first 4 years of his career. But also up against how many seasons of 825 or more snaps has T. Higgins had? Well, 0. And then if you look at how many in the last 4 years, those that got 20 million or more average annual value had, nobody was on that list, was 0. You had Mike Williams had 1, Deebo Samuel had 1, everybody else with 2, 3, or 4. So he does not have the participation numbers of the guys that have gotten paid for the most part. I mentioned Pittman, who also got paid. You can maybe look at some of the other contracts, but no, he's a little short on that. There's no question. Not egregiously. I mean, we're not talking about, thousands and thousands of snaps less, but a decent amount less. And that matters when you do get up into that price range. To answer your question, I would answer it also by saying, hey, you should go read that 4-part series, man. I'm telling you, that stuff was in depth. Really spent way too much time on it, but it's there for you still.
Read the archives before you send the email. So I know people have knocked the Burton character stuff. Is he an in-game outburst kind of guy? I thought that was mostly that one post-game incident and then stuff with like coaches and things. I didn't know that was necessarily like in-game firing up.
Yeah, so there's a couple. I mean, there was you had unsportsmanlike call in a big spot at one game, and he plays intense on the field. When I talked to TJ Hushmanzada about it, he's like, yeah, kind of plays like me. Where he plays angry, he plays with that chip on his shoulder and competitiveness visible a lot. And I don't know, I'm kind of okay with that. Like I don't mind having, as long as you know how to keep it from going too far. I mean, we're talking about Jamar Chase on this team, the guy who's I just felt like being evil tonight. I wanted to go pull flags and run and talk crap in people's faces and like talk to him about fines, and he's calling people elves. Like, I don't know, like you don't want a whole team of that. But I mean, look, if you can play and you play with some anger on your, you play with something to you, that's okay. You need that. Like
you can live with that.
Like every team needs like 3 unhinged guys, right? To keep the other team on their toes. You can't have a bunch of choir boys. Okay. You need a couple of guys that make the other team be like, man, I don't know what that dude's going to do.
Yeah. Like I shouldn't talk to this guy. He could really get nuts.
Don't mess with him. You need that. You gotta have that.